Jackson County Board of Commissioners meeting for 2014 to order. The invocation led by Julie Alexander and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Addison Alexander. Julie?
Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, we humbly thank you for our many blessings. We are blessed as individuals, as a community, and as a nation. It is easy to overlook and take for granted the gifts you have bestowed on us. We take this moment to simply thank you. Please protect those that serve our country at home and abroad, our first responders, law enforcement, and military that serve our great nation. We ask in your holy name, amen.
Ready?
Okay. I believe Addison, who is 4, will recite alone the pledge. If not, as any grandma will proudly say, we will join in if that does not happen. Okay, ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You did it! Yes, sweet. I'm so proud of you. Good job, Hannah.
Thank you, Addison. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Leitner? Here. Commissioner Lechka? Here. Commissioner Rice?
Here.
Commissioner Duckham?
Here.
Commissioner Alexander? Present. Commissioner Mahoney? Commissioner Plotchik? Here. Commissioner Elwell? Here. Chairman Shotwell?
Here.
8 present.
We have 8 present. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. Support. We have a motion and support. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Seeing nor hearing none, all in favor of the agenda? Those opposed? Duly carried. Awards and recognitions, we have none. Communications and petitions. Are there any to be delivered to the clerk at this time? Seeing no hearing none, we have no special orders nor public hearings. We've arrived at the first opportunity for public comment. Each individual will state their name and have 5 minutes to address the board. You may only address the board once under this public comment opportunity and may not yield your time to others. Board members will not debate nor answer questions at this time. Opportunity for public comment first time.
Thank you, Steve. My name is Wendy Chamberlain. I'm supervisor of Parma Township. Go over to the mic. Good. Okay, thank you. At this time, I would like to speak for Parma Township with regard to the street naming ordinance, or the amendment to it. I, as supervisor, and Parma Township support the adoption of the amendment to this ordinance. We have on several occasions had our firefighters, our rescue, our police have a difficult time locating individuals that are, in one case most recently, that had been stabbed by a knife. He lives on what we call West Court, but it's all addressed to Michigan Ave. I personally got a phone call, told the individuals where they could find him. That's a concern. I've heard it tossed about that it's going to cost too much. What price do we put on someone's life? What if it's your child, your parent? What if it's yourself? I've read it. I've discussed it. Ordinances are good in this respect, keeping in mind it's a working tool. And if there's a problem, it can always come forward again for recognition and amendment again. I have a lot of problems in Parma Township with the non-sequencing of numbers. In an eighth of a mile, I jump from the 19,000 number to a 17,000 number. That's very difficult. My building inspectors have told me they have difficulty finding properties with this problem. We have the ordinance that requires addressing for new properties. That's not a problem. But with the old problem, or the old properties that don't have the numbers out, and it's out of sequence, that's where the problem is. I have roads that aren't named. They started out as a driveway. Now they may have 3 or 4 houses on it. If you have 3 or 4 houses on a private access that's addressed to the primary road, our local firefighters may know it, but what if it's mutual aid? I'm very concerned about the health, safety, and welfare for the residents in Parma Township.
30 seconds, Wendy.
And I want to come on board first to be a township that would be addressed first. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Good evening, Commission. My name is J.B. DeJay. I'm the president of the Village of Brooklyn. I'm representing the village, and we oppose what is written. I have read this in the street naming and addressing ordinance. It is important to improve the system for public welfare, but we need to look at all of the alternatives. I mean, how many streets are there? The list was 52 pages in relatively small font, which makes roughly 2,800 streets within the county. 27 of the 35 streets in the village of Brooklyn, which amounts to roughly 77%, may be effective. 108 in Columbia Township itself as well. We're trying to solve a problem that we have with human error. I understand that the technology already exists at the county level, now with what is called the Advanced 911 System. Perhaps better training would be a solution. Everything is recorded, voice and data, and where deficiencies can be shown, more training can be given. My understanding is that the ambulance, the HVA, does not have a problem going to the wrong place. This alone, by renaming all these streets, still will not address the issue of human error. Out-of-towners, I understand it's a problem because they don't know where they are. Well, you can name a street anything you want, and they still aren't going to know where they are. So it will not solve that problem. The ordinance was written open to interpretation, and I believe that, I do know some of the people who would sit on the advisory committee. They're all good people, and I trust their judgment, but that's those who sit now. What happens when it changes over? We are presently part of the LRUA, and I'm sure everybody can understand what with the sewer district and the contracts, how open to interpretation has caused many problems. In Section 1A, Chapter 87, talks about civil infractions, and when I read that, I see nothing about misdemeanors, but in your penalties, misdemeanors can be given. It seems a bit draconian as far as the penalties. In Section 6.A.4 and 6.B.7, the villages are not to be informed, as all other government entities are, as far as changes that will occur. There's a burden to private citizens and businesses and government. A few things for the citizens. You have to change all your paperwork. Mortgages, insurance, anybody you do business with. Wills, power of attorney, even your church directory. The businesses, all advertising, licensing, state and federal, your business cards, contracts, signages. It's a very excessive burden, as well as with government, property descriptions, assessing, billing of water and sewer, not to mention the cost that would be incurred by schools if they have to change theirs. The navigation systems that we own in our cars and in Garmin, as well as OnStar, will be obsolete for several years to come. This appears to be an unfunded mandate, which I'm sure that no one appreciates having unfunded mandates. Are there surplus funds? What is the true cost? And regardless of where the government funds do come from, ultimately, those government funds come from the taxpayers themselves. I do understand Parma Township's situation. She had several points that I think are valid, but it does not necessarily mean that we need to make wholesale changes instead of taking care of the problems individually. I thank you for your time.
My name is Tom Miller. I'm here as a tax-paying citizen in opposition to the street naming and addressing ordinance. While I applaud the commissioner's concern with safety and the well-being of our people, I don't think that allocating those types of resources is something that you'll get the best return on. There are other ways to improve the safety that would be less expensive and less onerous on the people. As the previous speaker talked about, businesses will pay a huge price if their street name is changed. In many ways, I go back to my own experience when I lived in Toledo, Ohio. They considered changing the name of one of the streets, and when they really looked into it, the cost that it was going to cost their citizens and their businesses, they dropped it because it's an exorbitant cost. Now, some of the things in the ordinance, I think, are good. Renumbering when there's a problem, those types of things, but the wholesale changing of names would be very expensive, and it would take a toll on the people of Jackson County. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Pamela Johnson. I'm a trustee from Norville Township. Norville Township is opposed to the addressing ordinance as it stands right now for many of the reasons that the gentleman that spoke to you in front of me stated. I am also a business owner in our community. I own a Radio Shack franchise and have had it for nearly 30 years. My address is listed on innumerable websites that are national. I am also tied in with different cell phone companies and things like that. In our community, I'm on Main Street. If these changes are made, 30 years of my business cards, my letterhead, my customers and everything else could go by the wayside. It would be an astronomical expense for me as a business person to have to redo everything associated with my business. So from both sides there, the government side and the business owner side, please, not the way it's written and the way it stands. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Dan Weimer, Napoleon Township Supervisor, also speaking in opposition to the proposed changes to the ordinance. I've provided 3 sets of written feedback to the committee, various concerns that I have with several different iterations of the ordinance as it's gone through various edits. I guess the main point that I would like to make is the technology is available to solve this problem. If you know where the phone is that a person is calling from, you know where the problem is in an emergency situation. The technology is available to identify the location of cell phones. There is an app you can buy to put on your cell phone and on your computer, your desktop computer, and anytime your phone is somewhere that you don't know where it is, it can tell you exactly where it is. mean, the information is available, the technology is there. I believe we should be going down that path to solve this problem, rather than putting such a huge burden on residents and businesses to change potentially thousands of addresses. So, thank you.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Public comment's now closed. We have no special meetings of the board. We've arrived at the approval of the minutes of the October 21st, 2014 meeting. I have a motion and support. Any corrections or deletions? Seeing nor hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Duly carried. We've arrived at the consent agenda. Entertain a motion for the consent agenda. We have a motion and support. Any items for removal? Seeing nor hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you post the vote?
Yes, sir.
Consent agenda passed unanimously. Post those results there. Thank you. We've now arrived at standing committees, affairs and agencies. Chaired by Commissioner David Elwell. Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a group of appointments tonight. Give me just a second, if you would, please. We had two committees, the Region 2 Planning Commission. The current member is Teresa Abbey. There have still been no applicants and therefore no recommendation from committee. We also have the Parks and Rec Board, which expires December of this year. The most recent member was Michael Rand. There were no applicants for committee nor recommendations.
Commissioner David Elwell. Or David Lechka, I apologize.
Hi, brother.
Support. We have an open nomination from the floor to serve on the Parks and Recreation Board. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Seeing nor hearing none, all in favor of Kenny Price being appointed to the Parks and Rec Board? Those opposed? Duly carried. Commissioner Elwell.
No additional business, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Standing Committee Report, Human Services, chaired by Commissioner Julie Alexander. Commissioner Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Human Services Committee has no business to bring to the board.
Thank you. Standing Committee Report, Personnel and Finance, chaired by the Vice Chairman, Philip Duckham. Commissioner Duckham.
Mr. Chair, Personnel and Finance has no business to conduct tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've arrived at an unfinished business. We have item A, Leone SRA Bond Resolution. It is a discussion item. I'm going to let the County Administrator Controller speak to it. Administrator Overton?
Thank you. As everybody recalls at our last opportunity to discuss this, I indicated at that time that I would be bringing forward a resolution with hopes of passing tonight. But the truth be told, after speaking with legal counsel, we have to wait for them to default. So I want to make it very clear. If Leone, let me retract that. If we, the county, do not have the bond payment as of December 1st, we will declare Leone in default on the bond payment. At such time, this resolution will be eligible, and I would want to have potentially a special meeting to go ahead and move as quickly as possible to declare default, notify the state treasurer so that they could start procedures to withhold some of their state revenue sharing, as well as we've already done the calculations on the math for what the millage rate would be be .1688, and that millage rate would be passed on to every property owner in Leone Township, assuming the board were to approve the resolution in December. That's assuming they don't pay the bond.
Commissioner Elwell.
Would it make sense to send them a copy of the resolution, even though we haven't approved it yet, so they know what's coming if they don't, or would that be too forward?
They have it.
Very good.
I've shared that with them.
Commissioner Lechka.
This is only for the interest payment this time. There is no principal payment on this.
That's correct. This payment would be $77,812.
Commissioner Rice.
Just to make my fellow commissioners aware of this, Leone Township Board is having a special meeting tomorrow morning. You're all welcome to attend. It's at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to readdress the voting on the bond payment, just to let you know.
Any other commissioner comments? Any other comments from the Administrator Controller's Office?
I have nothing to add.
As chairman, I believe it would be responsible and appropriate for us to set a December 2nd, 8 a.m. special Board of Commissioners meeting, for that is as soon as we can act, and this would allow us to have 2 weeks' notice on that meeting to be published. Can I entertain a motion from someone? We have a motion and support. Any discussion to the motion?
That's assuming they default.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We can cancel a meeting anytime we'd like. We do need to give public notice to when we're going to have a meeting. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion to the item? Commissioner Elwell.
I'm just going to say, I think it's the discretion of the chair really to call a special meeting if he so chose, would it not be, without a motion or?
It would be, but it's much easier to do it here because I don't have to send sheriff deputies out to get you guys. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried 8-0. New business. Draft addressing ordinance. This is for discussion only. This is not a first reading or anything like that. I'm looking for commissioner comments at this time. Commissioner Elwell.
I've been pretty quiet about it publicly up until now. I've sat and listened to comments from the public here and at a couple other public board meetings. I do have strong thoughts on it, I guess, and I don't support the street addressing ordinance at this point. And I think there have been enough points raised by the local communities to make it clear to us that there's probably a majority that do not support it. I do agree that safety should be the primary issue, but there are other things that can be done to assure accuracy and therefore safety. That includes training, expanded use of GPS and other technology. I think the original plan for the street addressing ordinance was to only bring forth changes brought by local government to the Board of Commissioners. And that may be a happy middle ground that we could still work towards. I also am disappointed that the city was exempted from the ordinance. I think that just opens up a larger can of worms with a number of streets in the city that would be duplicated outside, or are duplicated outside the city. And I understand they couldn't do it, but it doesn't mean we have to like that. The cost issue has been raised. It's not just the physical cost of changing signs, but stationery and so many other things mentioned by the previous speakers during public comment. I also heard an issue raised last night about filings with the Register of Deeds office that apparently use what's called a common address. I don't know what this would do to that if some of those changed by this. There's also, as I recall, not an appeal for decisions by the committee to the Board of Commissioners in the current version. That might be something easy to fix, but it's something that I don't think is in there. I've also heard the comments that the committee would be reasonable. JB mentioned that he trusted the people on the committee, so do I, but reasonable really is a matter of opinion and interpretation. And I think really if there's a law, which this would be, that is written, people expect laws that are written to be followed and enforced. And to write them without that expectation is, in my opinion, stupid and a waste of time. I also note that there's a mandatory requirement for every address in the county to be posted. Is it realistic to really expect that we're going to go after that and enforce that at the risk of prosecution? And I will lastly say that I do strongly support the ideas behind this ordinance from this point moving forward, but not retroactively and not to cause a bunch of changes to street names. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Duckham, then Commissioner Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, public safety aspect of this. Okay. I support the issue of public safety, but as points have already been spoken, I do believe there's other methods to correct some of the problems. Probably not all. A lot of it, some of the issues we've had has been just human error, and that's would have to be spoken to with greater training. But we don't have any perfect humans. And I'd like to preface what I say with the fact that it's a difficult job, this addressing and street naming ordinance. It's a thankless job, and no disrespect to the people sat on the committee, but I just don't feel that there's too much left to interpretation here, and like the president from the village of Brooklyn said, I trust the people that's on the board right now to make the right decisions on these issues, but there's too much that isn't written into the ordinance. Options such as not changing the street name, but changing the addresses from 3-digit addresses to 4-digit addresses and leaving the names the same. I'm told that's an option. However, it doesn't say anywhere in the ordinance that that is an option. So while the addressing board may be workable on these issues, such as giving you an option to do that, that's the current board. The next board may say, nowhere in the ordinance does it say you're allowed to do this. So it's a difficult issue. I understand that, but there's a huge economic impact for the people I represent in District 4, and probably every area of the county. And at this point in time, I can't support this ordinance as written. Going forward, I would certainly not allow any duplicate names, street names, duplicate sounding street names, or duplicating addresses, but to go backwards and correct the many years of addressing and street naming we've done, I can't support going back on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to publicly acknowledge what the committee consists of. The original adoption by the Board of Commission for street naming and address ordinance placed on this committee, on the original committee, the following individuals. Sure, 2 copies here. Again, going back to 2006. The committee will consist of the following individuals: a Jackson County Commissioner, County Clerk, Road Commissioner, representative from the U.S. Postal Office, 911 Central Dispatch, Jackson County GIS, and the affected governmental unit. The new ordinance, the new proposed revised ordinance, has everything, again, similar, with the exception of adding the chair of the Jackson County Township Supervisor Association. So again, serving on this committee would be 1 county commissioner, county clerk, register of deed, representative from the Township Supervisors Association, a county JDOT employee, U.S. Postal Service 911 Central Dispatch, and County GIS Coordinator. So understanding that's the committee, those are the individuals that are going to review any issues that come up. If issues come up and that knowledgeable and informed committee make decisions that constituents believe are not in their best interest, I have the utmost respect for all of those of you that live on Main Street in Jackson County, or Michigan Avenue, or Jackson Street. Those are issues to be discussed. If this ordinance is not written correctly, then the ordinance needs to be modified, and those suggestions will be taken by the committee. But to sit here and say the ordinance isn't good, I don't like the $500, it costs too much, that goes back to the original ordinance that was written on July 18th, 2006. So to say that the ordinance isn't good, the ordinance is the ordinance, and that is in place right now. So I think we can all agree. I think we need to find some common ground here. We know that modifications need to be done. What are the modifications that this board would like to see? What places can we move forward with? Do we see that addresses that are out of sequence are our priority? Do we see that private roads that have the same name as the road that they are coming off of are a priority? Again, that is the information that I believe the committee would like to see and have and easily could move forward with in a collaborative manner.
Commissioner Lechka.
To address one issue, you can't put every single scenario that might arise in an ordinance. I mean, you can't think of them, and you can't put them in there, because once you put them in there, you have no choice but to absolutely follow that. You have to have some flexibility to make the thing functional. The numbering sequence is terrible. I mean, you got FedEx trucks and UPS trucks running up and down the road trying to find people. I mean, they pull into our yard all the time wanting to know where the next door neighbor is. Well, that's 2 miles down the road when the numbers start over again. I mean, there's common sense things that need to be taken care of. Some of the things I heard tonight might, and I know I'm not on the committee and maybe it wasn't thought of before, was maybe businesses need to be handled differently than residences. A business should be more well-known to the delivery people and the ones providing services than some of the individuals that live on a private road that doesn't have a name. So
Commissioner Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also appreciate everybody that got up and spoke tonight. Whether it be pro or con is not the issue. You had something to say, and I appreciate you saying it. What I do want to comment, though, is on today I read an article, and in that article the statement was, and it questioned if the policy, in this case, of course, we're talking about this ordinance, questioned if the policy wasn't being initiated due to inept training and inept employees at the county level. I find this to be wrong and in poor taste. Let me comment further. First, Consumers Power had the task of street addresses in the first place. They didn't want anything to do with it. They screwed it up. It didn't work. So in 2006, county puts together an ordinance. The townships have the responsibility to deal with the addresses, streets, except for a couple exceptions. the scope of work was not completed. Now, Jackson County, from my perspective, not only is obligated to do this, but if we're going to follow our strategic priorities, and public safety being number 2, it's been number 1 for years, if we're truly going to follow that as a strategic priority, then that's what we need to do. Anybody that's been out there as a police officer, anybody that's been out there on a campaign trail, anybody that's been a first responder, anybody that's just went into a neighborhood to find an address, many, many times, you can't find it. And I realize there's technology down the road, there's this and that, but the fact is, this is a responsibility that's been put in our laps because the work wasn't done before. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? You have your notes from the Board of Commissioners. We wait for the December study session, correct? Okay. Dave?
This isn't something that the county just fought up and said, oh, we need an ordinance. There's the state law that says that the counties have the authority to go ahead and, for public safety, make an ordinance.
We're looking for legal clarification on that, Dave, to make sure that we've got it.
Okay, it's listed in the original ordinance, so okay.
Did you want to comment, Phil?
I can think of one more. We're talking public safety, but one more scenario that's going to happen because of humans being imperfect. And that's people, whether it be a police car, ambulance, fire department vehicle, dispatch going to say something like Cooper Street. Everybody remembers where Cooper Street used to be, and it's been changed, and we're going to get a police car or a public safety vehicle, because if you grew up in the area and you know where all the roads are and you know all the names, it's going to be a big learning curve to erase that out of your mind and go to the newly changed name. And I could see a lot of emergency dispatch calls going in the wrong direction because that's where the road used to be. And I say we got to work more towards the technology end of it and try to eliminate the human error, because this will open the window to probably several years of human error till Google Maps and such catch up with the times, and then the street changes.
Commissioner Alexander?
Before we meet for study session, I'm getting 2 varied pieces of information. Very knowledgeable and resourceful people that I respect have given me the information that when an individual calls on a cell phone, that location of that cell phone is then displayed on the screen at Dispatch Center. However, when I'm asking other individuals, who again are very knowledgeable, I am being told that the location is not that of the cell phone, it's that of the cell tower, and that the FCC has not mandated that it's the actual location and will not. Come 2018, it will give more information closer to it. But I think that's a critical question here we need to ask. So we're picking up the phone and we're calling 911 on our cell phone. Can we make the assumption that they know where we're at based on where I'm at with my cell tower? Because that, to me, is a critical piece of information that we would need to have. So I would like clarification on that, please.
Commissioner Elwell?
Well, knowing that we just spent, $1 million on our dispatch center, I would think that we have the most up-to-date equipment on it. But prior to the meeting tonight, I went to the Verizon Wireless website and looked up their frequently asked questions, and I'll read a very brief portion of it. It says, "We also provide PSAPs, Public Safety Answering Points, with what's known as Enhanced 911 or E911 service, where PSAPs have upgraded their equipment. E911 automatically provides call takers with the mobile phone number, the cell site and sector, and the estimated latitude and longitude location of the 911 caller if the PSAP is capable of receiving it." I have to believe that ours is. When I drilled down a little further in the comments to see how close it was, it estimated between 50 and 150 meters, 50 meters being 164 feet. I would think that's close enough to figure out where somebody's at. And that's off the Verizon website.
Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, again, please keep getting with the committee, Scott Ames, to get questions answered, share stuff with commissioners as you are concerned, or your commissioners. And we'll talk more about it at December study session. As chairman of the board, I'd like to, at this time, to recognize Commissioner Sarah Leitner, who's been requested to serve on the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee for MAC. And I would hope to get the board's endorsement of that. Entertain a motion, please. We have a motion and support. Any comments? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Be noted 8-0. Thank you, Sarah. We have now arrived at the second opportunity for public comment. Is there any public comment? Any public comment? Seeing none? Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Duckham.
Yes, I'd like to thank the representatives from the Village of Brooklyn, Columbia Township, Napoleon Township, and Norval Township for taking the time to come up here tonight, nasty weather, slippery roads, to express your viewpoints and concerns on this ordinance. I believe we got to do something, but I just don't feel this is ready yet, and I appreciate you coming up with your comments and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Any other commissioner comments? Seeing nor hearing none, we have no closed session. A reminder from the chair that the December Tuesday night meeting will be starting at 5 p.m. Be aware of that. Seeing no other business to come before the board, we are adjourned.